Hey everybody, it is the Scene World podcast. My name is AJ, and his name is not
It's
AJ.
Yuck.
Yes, it's Jörg.
Yes,
It's the Scene World podcast. Yeah, gotta do the radio
exactly.
voice. Hey! Throw in some sound effects and
Ooh, yeah.
that noise.
Right. Well, that
Yes.
noise means it's this time of the year again. Gamescom is approaching, and we will
Oh,
be
yes.
part of that. So if
hmm
you want to see us, we have a panel there on the 26th
Yes, we do.
at 2 p.m. New York time or New Jersey time, and that's
Eastern Daylight Time.
8 p.m. in the Central European Summer Time.
hmm
And if you want to join us, gamescom.global, and there you can go to the retro stream and have a look.
Yes, indeed, indeed. More information as we figure it out.
Right. So gamescom.global.
Yes. So, in a minute, we are talking with Andrew Fisher, our very own sweet honey bear from the UK, Andrew Fisher, who is a
Exactly.
prolific. He's a prolific magazine writer, article guy. He's got what article guy? What the hell is that?
Yeah,
He's a
an editor,
prolific journalist.
contributing
He's a
editor to
journalist.
many books, many magazines.
Yes, he's a retro journalist who is has been prolific. He's written books, he's written magazine articles, he's all over the place. He's also a coder, he's also a musician. He's
Yep.
pretty much across the board. He's just one of our favoritist people, and we will be talking to him momentarily.
About his career and stuff.
Yes, yes. Before that, however, we have some a couple of bits of news. So,
Right.
my friend, I shall let you start.
Well, the Amiga, the A500 Mini was announced from retrogames.biz. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep,
Speaking
yep,
of
yep.
which, look what I got.
The Mini C64.
Arrived at my house, with in shrouded in mystery because I did not order this, but whoever sent it to me, thanks. I suppose I haven't used it
Yeah.
yet. I haven't.
Yeah, anyway, so it's supposed to be released on the 30th first of March next year, 2022, and I already pre-ordered it at Amazon.
You
Let's
did.
see how well it goes.
You did.
Yeah.
You pre-ordered an Amiga product.
Right.
You did. You Mister. I'll never have anything to do with the Amiga.
Yeah, well, not a real Amiga. I'm not going to learn how the system works. I'm not
But
going to learn
it
how copy
wor-
protection
But
stuff
Workbench,
works. And stuff.
you can boot into Workbench, and the mouse works. Everything, it's like it's a you're going to be using Workbench if you're using that.
Perhaps not. I mean, it comes with 25 games pre-installed.
Yes.
Perhaps it's just a menu you can select
That is
from.
that is the biggest, probably the biggest thing that I had with the Amiga getting used to, which is because I never had an Amiga when it was an Amiga. When they, what the heck? Man, my face is not working today. I didn't have an Amiga back when they were being made, when they were current machines.
85.
Yeah, or 85 through the early 90s, or mid 90s actually. But
Well, 94 is not mid 90, really.
but they continued. Amiga kept making them after Commodore died. So
Yeah.
so they were
Well,
still being
Escom
produced.
took
Yeah,
over in Germany
right.
until
Yeah,
96. So
right. Yeah,
just 2 years longer.
yeah. But so I never had an Amiga while they were being made. And so my perception of it is a little skewed. Now with the Amiga, the thing is that you have Workbench, which is an operating system that you can boot into. And having now been on a Mac and Windows machines and all this stuff for so long, that is what I'm used to. But the Amiga, really, what you would normally do is just pop a disc in and boot the game directly off the disc, not bothering with Workbench at all. And I have a really hard time wrapping my brain around that concept of the fact like I don't need the OS to run this game. This game.
It's the same with the C64.
Yes, it is. It is. It is closer to the C64 in functionality than it is to the machines that we have now. But again, like it's the sort of thing like I see an OS, I automatically boot the Amiga into Amiga OS, and my brain wants to do everything in Amiga OS, and it's like no. You don't actually need Amiga OS to use the computer. Word processors,
just like you don't need GEOS to use a Commodore 64.
Right. Word processors and graphics software and all this stuff, like you wouldn't use Workbench to get to them. They were just, some of them would let you install it in Workbench so that you could, but a lot of them you just threw the disk in and booted off the disk, and that was it.
Yeah, but the GEOS system is
GEOS system is a totally different animal. Yeah, GEOS is
because despite you wouldn't need it, they were separated programs just to run on GEOS.
Yes. And you could boot into a regular old program through GEOS. Just throw a regular disk in, and it would show you all your files, and pick the one you want, and you'll leave GEOS and load the file. But this is getting way off the point. The point is that there is a Amiga 500 Mini.
Other pieces of news actually is that there was an announcement that on Twitter that 3DFX would return.
Really?
But it turns out that this was a troll attempt.
Oh.
So they are not coming back. So that means it will stay between NVIDIA and AMD.
Well, Apple's also making its own GPUs now, so.
Yeah, but not for the gaming market.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's going to work because, yeah, it's a little weird. That's
companies like Intel making graphic chips and so on.
Yeah.
But GPUs or
Intel's GPUs have gotten not bad, not terrible.
Yeah, but not for gaming.
Well,
gaming is AMD and NVIDIA exclusively.
Yeah, but the entry level, there was a time when if you had an Intel graphics processor, like the GMA whatever X3100 or something, that you were doomed. Don't even try playing a game. But at a certain point, they became less terrible. Like starting with, I would say, the HD 4000, they became serviceable, where games you could play games not at the highest settings, but you weren't doomed if you had that processor, and you could do stuff like you could use it to export or to help export video and stuff. It could do that kind of thing, taking some time away from the processor to handle it as like a discrete GPU would. And then their Iris graphics and stuff. They've gotten better. They've gotten a lot better than what they were. They're still not. I wouldn't want to play Flight Simulator 2020 on it, but
2020.
Yeah. But but you could play some. You could play games that are a couple of years old.
Does it run Doom? So how about the other pieces of news?
I just got one, which is an interesting one, which is that it was posted literally a couple of days ago. Somebody took the C64 kernel and ported it to the Atari 8-bit line. So when you start up your Atari, you have a C64.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. There are some issues with it. It's still in beta, obviously, and the issues are like there's no way to load or save basic programs because there's no I/O, there's no drive functionality, because Petsky color doesn't work for some reason. Probably because the colors are different. But yeah, I mean, there's a video on YouTube that you can see. We'll put a link to it in the description, and it'll probably be playing over our faces right now. of of an Atari. It looks like a 400 running Commodore Basic V2. So
Interesting.
yeah, it is interesting. I just love the fact that these things continue to happen. That people are still messing around with these things, and it has a GitHub page. It has a GitHub page as well, so people can continue to, I guess, contribute to it.
And now let's mess
Yes.
with Andrew's brain and jump to him.
Yes, Andrew Fisher is waiting in the wings, and we are going to talk to him and learn all about all the things that he has done and why he's awesome and why we don't deserve him.
Oh, don't be like that. So, as we are ready, let's start.
Yes.
Live from Andrew's bedroom. Well,
Hey, I've got the same shirt except mine's green.
Oh, cool. I've got a white one as well.
Ah, very nice.
and I got
Just got, was that a spreadsheet?
Yeah, this spreadsheet advertisement. I got it printed on a shirt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the one from Australia.
The T-shirt I have on now is much more obscure. I don't know if people would understand that weren't into early '90s sci-fi. But I got
Babylon.
Babylon 5.
I know that. Yeah,
yes.
Sure.
It was big in Germany, I believe. Yeah, it was big in Germany.
It was. Anyway, today we have another guest again.
Yes.
And this time it's one of our own staff members. Oh my God. The very, very much known Andrew Fisher, also called Professor Andrew or Professor Merman, right?
Yeah, and also then I was Professor Brian Strain in the pages of Commodore Force.
Ooh, yeah, and we are talking not specifically about a scene build today, but about your career in the retrosphere.
And just to be clear, it's this dog.
That's an internal joke.
Yes.
Just for people who don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, an external joke as well, but.
Alrighty. Well, the thing is, I thought I know everything about you, Andrew, but it appears I don't, because you sent us a list of things.
Yes, you sent us your resume. So I have to ask, what do you feel that you're bringing to this company? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Probably doing the same things.
Probably. Yeah.
There's an English expression, jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. If I was going to say what my strength was, I'd probably say it's the writing is my strongest side, and that's the bit I've been doing the longest. I started writing for Commodore Force when I was 17, so that's been the longest part of it. But that was the reason I started writing for Commodore Force, was because I developed my skills for the Commodore 64. So by that point, I was already starting to do some music. I was already starting to do some machine code programming. I knew quite a bit on the technical side about the machine, and also particularly GEOS. I was working with the Geo Club UK for GEOS users as well. So I had quite a broad knowledge at that point, and it's only built from there.
What people don't know, the way I got to know Andrew was actually that I had a phone call with Alex de Vries from Crystal Software in the Netherlands, and I said, I'm planning to do this magazine that unites the Americans and the Europeans, and I'm looking for skilled people, and he would send me a fax with names of people and addresses and phone numbers. And your address was on it.
But most importantly, you had a fax machine in your house?
In 98, 99, we had a fax machine, right?
Okay.
In the 90s, fax was still a big thing.
Okay. Sure.
At least here in Germany. And several occasions, like banks would only communicate with customers over fax.
Really?
Or certain doctors and stuff.
Huh.
Anyway, so what Alex de Vries said about you, Andrew, was that you are a magic roundabout because you can do code, graphics, and music. So I actually wrote to you, and you answered me pretty quickly, and then you joined People of Liberty, which is the group that I took over back in '99 because the original leader was no longer interested in keeping it going. And this is how I got to know Andrew Fisher. So it felt like you didn't already have enough on your plate.
Yeah.
Or you thought my note
to
you
do.
was nice enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was very intrigued by the idea. Prior to that, I'd been involved very briefly with another disc mag called Universal. And the idea of that was people from different countries would send in a chapter that they'd written, and then it would be put into their magsys and sent round. And I quite like the way that one was presented because you literally had the flag of the country the person was from. You clicked on it, you got the text. And so, as I said, I was involved in a couple of issues of that. So I thought, yeah, that was quite good. And then that was through the Irish demo group Ozone. A friend of mine, Donica, invited me to join that 1993, sort of just after I started writing for Commodore Force. And so I was in Ozone for several years. Then, as Joerg says, I joined People of Liberty primarily to work on Scene World, but I have then released other stuff through People of Liberty's, quite a bit of music, and one or two little demos.
All Beers collection was quite successful.
All Beers, yeah, I enjoyed doing that one. That was great fun.
Yeah.
And and then I also then joined up to Roll and the Arachnophobia staff that was about around 2001. So those are the scene groups I've been in over the years. Still officially part of Roll, even though I'm not very active for Roll.
Well, Roll is like having a lot of members, but isn't very active as a group. But it has always been like this way.
Oh, yes.
And then there are suddenly a peak of activity, and then it slows down again.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying once that every publication you took part in usually died at some point.
Yeah, that was the quote I put on my Commodore Scene database page, CSDB. But that goes back to when I first started writing the UK publication Commodore Disc User, which was a magazine which had a disc on the cover each month. And I'd written one or two little programs for that and a couple of routines for that. And I had the signed contracts for publication. So they were going to pay me money for my programs. And the company publishing it, Argus Specialist Publications, went bankrupt. And so I thought, oh, that's a real pity. Just when I just turned 16, thought money would come in handy then. They closed. But a new company took over, Alphavite Publications, and I wrote to them and said, look, got the contracts with them. Are you still interested in signing? And they said, yeah, sure, we're still interested. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and just over a year later, they closed too, owing lots of people money. So, so that was a bad start. But there was something in Commodore Disc User, Jason Finch, who went on to write for Commodore Format, Commodore Force's main rival. He said in one of his columns for Commodore Disc User that he had literally written to the magazine and said, I can write, give us a job. Which is a very British expression. And he got the job writing the technical column for them. So when Zap64 published a survey asking readers what they wanted, say perhaps a technical column, I thought, aha, here's an opportunity, take it. So I literally sat down and mocked up a column answering readers' letters, saying why isn't this working? How do I do this? Cut up a couple of old issues of Zap for some illustrations, sent it off to the editor at the time, Phil King. And a couple of months later, I got a letter back from Steve Shields, who was taking over as editor, saying the magazine is rebranding as Commodore Force in line with the other magazines. And we'd love you to start on the first issue with that. We'll announce a couple of issues beforehand that we want your technical inquiries, your technical letters, and we'll pass them on to you. You write the column, send it in to us. There you go. So great, I've got the foot in the door. Of course, part of the reason for the rebrand as Commodore Force is because the original publishers of Zap, Newsfield, had gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
They'd gone into liquidation. And so fortunately, they started up a new company, Europress Impact, to carry on with the magazine. So there was a month where there wasn't an issue of Zap, and then it came back for just over a year then, became Commodore Force. And Commodore Force lasted 16 issues. I wrote for every issue of Commodore Force. I did some extra work then at the last minute for issue 16 to fill some extra pages because they were desperately short of content. Literally 48 hours notice. I wrote 1,000 words, printed it off, raw mail, next day delivery to make sure it got there in time. And issue 16 comes out, and ring the editor and say, yeah, what's happening next month? What do you need next month? And he says, I'll get back to you. And a week later, I'm thinking, this is getting close to deadline. What's happening? Ring again. Yeah, we've got some problems here. I'll get back to you. No. And of course,
he never got back to you, right?
Yeah.
They're gone. So
Ooh.
Another magazine down the tubes.
Uh-huh.
So
wow.
A few months later, someone approached me and said, look, I've got some articles that need to go into Commodore format. I can't write them myself because obviously he's running the company that's selling these things. Could you write this sort of article for them? I sent off one article. It's called Bargain Hunter. It's in issue 54 of Commodore format, and that was done to a commission. So it's talking about buying stuff secondhand, and that one went down quite well. And then from 56 up to issue 60, I was then in every month with some stuff. I did a piece on clubs and newsletters for them. I did a couple of game reviews. I reviewed Walkers and Sword of Honor for them. And funny story about the Sword of Honor review. I was writing all my text at the time on the 64. I was using WordWriter V6, and I'd print it out on a printer and literally mail off the pages. Commodore format was switching to Macintoshes for all their in-house production at that point. I said, look, could you send us stuff on disk? Fortunately, I'd brought a Commodore 1581 disk drive, the 3.5-inch disk drive. And there was a program for that called Big Blue Reader, which allowed you to read and write IBM PC 720K disk.
Yeah, remember
so I wrote the text in WordWriter 6, transferred it into ASCII with Big Blue Reader, grabbed some screenshots of Action Replay, converted them into GIF files, copied these files all over to a 3.5-inch disk, sent them off to Commodore format. And if you look at the pictures in the final article, unfortunately one of them's corrupted. And another one, the color balance is completely wrong. So it was a brave experiment, but it failed. And then issue 61 of Commodore format arrived. No warning whatsoever. It's closing.
Oh, yet again.
Yeah, so then I spent the next few years basically writing for fanzines and disc magazines. Commodore Scene in the UK, Commodore Zone came along quite a few years later. But a lot of my time then in the 90s, because I was having problems with my health back then, I still have quite a few problems with my health, which affects how much I can work. So I spent a lot of time in the 90s then, first of all, transcribing sheet music into starting off with Ubix Music and then Dutch USA Teams Music Assembler. And it was mainly done for the fun of it. Didn't really envisage spreading it, sending it off to people. But then Warren Pilkington, who's done a lot of work with the High Voltage SID collection, said to me, why don't you give it a go? Try writing some original stuff. Try some of your own tunes. He sent me some presets, and I started dabbling and started doing one or two. And I started enjoying doing that, sort of, sitting down, spend a couple of hours composing a tune. And of course, then when you got a tune, you think, all right, well, put it in a little demo or something. So I did a sort of series of demos of the music I'd transcribed. So bands like Blur, The Police, The Beatles. Became friends with another Commodore 64 fan, Danny Todd. He'd done a music menu, and he'd got an IRQ loader, so you could load in the one tune while another one was playing. And so I tinkered around with his code a bit, worked out how to do a menu. So the next disc I sent out has got a menu with 25 tunes on, and you can scroll through the list and pick them up. And so so there's that sort of thing. And then another very good friend of mine, Wayne Womersley of the Art Ravers, he does a lot of graphic stuff. He sent me loads of discs full of his particularly cartoon artwork, and I thought, yeah, these are great. We'll do a slideshow. So sort of just coded up a basic sort of bitmap display routine, put sprite scroller in the border, play a bit of music, use the IRQ loader, load it in, and you got a slideshow. So cool. So I did quite a few of those. There's one I'm particularly proud of on that, which is there's a couple I'm proud of on that. The second South Park slideshow. It's got some really great artwork in it by Wayne. I used Blackmail's HISP editor, which allows you to edit 8 sprites together in a little picture. So you've got 8 different colors. It's all one by one pixel, so you can get lots and lots of detail. Oh. So I did the sprites of the South Park characters, so Kenny, Kyle, Cartman, and Eric. And so they animate in various ways through the demos. They slide in off the screen. They, like the start of the cartoon where the characters all jumble up together out of the pieces of paper. I did that so the sprites slide in and they make up the character. And so there's lots of little animation touches like that in the demo, which I think come out really well. The music I did for that one I really like. But then the thing I think I like about it most is the introduction sequence. There's actually 3 different intros on that slideshow. So if you just load up the first file on the disk, it picks one at random. So it could be any of those 3.
Wow.
Okay. If you go up to the top left-hand corner of the screen and type 1, 2, or 3 before you load and run the demo, it will pick intro 1, 2, or 3.
It's an Easter egg, kind of.
Yeah, it's an Easter egg. So there's a Star Wars intro, there's a Star Trek intro, and there's a Platoon intro. And they've each got a different logo and a different vertical scroller. And I just loved how that one came together. When I had the idea, coded it, it all comes together. And in a similar vein, I did another slideshow, which was when I got the Handy Scanner 64, which allows you to scan things in.
Oh, yes, I have that too, yes.
I scanned in loads, everything I could find: Dungeons and Dragons monster manuals, role-playing game manuals, fighting fantasy booklets, cartoons out of the paper, and Pokemon came along. Pokemon was huge, and I thought, yeah, I've got to do a Pokemon demo. And of course, being the sort of the cartoon outlines, the black outlines, they scanned really well with the Handy Scanner. I thought, yeah, I'll do a slideshow of these. So scanned them in, used Advanced Art Studio to color them in, so they look pretty good on the screen. And so then I thought, right, so I've got all these different Pokemon. How about telling a little story, almost like an episode of Pokemon? So again, this demo uses the random function as well. So every time you play that, it plays the slideshows, the slides and the pictures in a different order. And each one has got then a little sort of a little Petsky introduction screen which tells a bit of the story. So it might be a Mewtwo, and it says, Ash encounters a very rare Pokemon, or the next one, Psyduck has a headache, so, and then it introduces the character, and that's got some little sprite animations in as well. So when it shows the Pokemon, then you get a Pokeball flies in from the side of the screen and zaps it and captures it. So that's a fun little one. I've put the recording of that up on my YouTube channel, so I do like that one.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you are very creative. I mean, this is actually where you came into hand working for Scene World, because one of your first tasks was actually learning how to anti-suffix.
Yes.
And Faz, also called Dustin Chambers, actually taught you how to do that.
Yes, he gave me some help with that, gave me some little routines and 1 or 2 tricks, Yep.
Which is interesting, because back then, 21 years ago, nobody gave a damn about the Americans.
Yeah.
So what made you motivated to help there? I mean, everybody told me, even those people who were pretty famous back then, even like Jazz Cat, they all told me it's in vain. Don't even invest the time in it.
Well, I mean, I remember when I first got my sort of first discs of public, PD software through from Binary Zone here in the UK, and I was looking through some demos, and there's one or two, and I remember one particularly, which is the Thrust demo by Ash and Dave, which plays the music from Thrust by Rob Hubbard with the animated band, and it actually asks before you start, "Are you a Yankee?"
Yes.
Y/N. If you type yes, it skips the first part of the demo and goes straight into the concert. The reason being, it's a sprite scroller that goes right across the top and bottom borders, and the timing doesn't work properly on NTSC machines.
Yeah.
So that sort of always stuck with me, that there was this very sort of separate scene in America, and I'd seen sort of one or two cracks, particularly with imported from the States, and bits and pieces wouldn't work. Parts of the intro wouldn't work. The raster bars would glitch and flicker, or the picture would be slightly scrambled because of where it was on screen. And I think that sort of stuck with me. So when you mentioned, we need to enter NTSC fix, I can say, okay, yeah, it makes sense. If you're trying to unite the scenes and talk about the whole scene world, then let's get it running for the whole scene world so they can all see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you never told me about those experiences. Interesting.
Yeah, this is it. This is all part of. Okay. This is all part of what informed the decisions, informed what I did. So.
Yeah. Well,
it seems kind of like your experience with magazines sort of was the reverse of mine, where you came on as a writer, and through your experience through that, kind of turned into a programmer and a musician and all this other stuff. Whereas I started off programming. And I was published by Lodestar, and that was I still got the the contracts on the wall behind me.
Oh, cool.
They're stuck behind the microphone, but they're back there. And that was a big deal for 16-year-old me to be published and actually paid for my stuff.
I had a couple of bits on Lodestar as well myself. Yeah.
Yeah, but I discovered during that I actually enjoyed writing the documentation to the program more than I liked making the program.
Well,
and so
that's interesting. That's one of the things I did like about the Lodestar format is that because you got the documents as well, then, and run it through their menu program, you felt like you knew what you're doing with the program or the game when you loaded it up because it was there. And as you say, it's interesting. Then you've written something. How do you put that across to someone? How to use it?
Yeah. But it's but I ended up so you came on as a writer and turned into a programmer, whereas I came in as a programmer and turned into a writer. Which is
interesting.
And also one thing you often say, or I often heard from you, was like you are very modest, and I would hear a lot like I'm not really good at coding and stuff. And I remember when I was talking with AJ about that, AJ totally had the different opinion. Like, hey man, he hacked the code from Warp and Harper. And,
well, yeah, you had to reverse engineer the entire magazine outfit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say I did have some help on that from Robin, because he sent me a list of entry points into it.
Right.
It's because he was using the Mr. Mouse code from Lodestar and Lee Novak as the base for what was running the pointer in the menu system. It's a case of that has some you call this address with this value and it will do this. You tell it to draw a box at this point, it'll do this. So when you know where they are, it is a little more straightforward. You still actually have to physically put the numbers into memory and find out where they are. And the trick with that was there's a particular value, and it's not in my head after all these years. It should be really. There's a particular value that signaled the end of each menu piece, and if you could find those, you could see how long each menu section was, because it's literally you pass. There's a basic program you can poke. You put all the menus in strings, and it pokes it into the correct piece of memory, and you save that piece of memory out, load it into the Magsys, and there you go. That's set the menus up. So.
Oh, okay.
Another thing I didn't know: all the secrets are coming out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun working on on that second issue of SeaWorld, getting that out the door, and then we sort of settled into a bit of routine. Then you'd gather the text, and I'd do the final edit and put the final mag together, and we'd get it out there and spread it, and some highs, some lows, some good, some bad.
That's true. And here's one thing I would like to know, because I think you said once in a comment, you said like, it's good we continued after our 5 years break, and you said once that you were kind of responsible for the 5 years break, and from my perspective that wasn't the case. From my feeling, we had a mutual agreement that we quit because of the negative feedback we received from the outside back then.
Yes. I mean, to a large extent, yes. It was the negative feedback that completely demotivated me to carry on with SceneWorld for a while. Again, obviously my health was going downhill at that point, leading up to my diagnosis in 2009 with Crohn's disease. But yeah, I mean, it was never a case of I wanted to walk away from it completely. I felt we could always do something with it. I mean, I'm glad in a way it did hang around, because now obviously we've got these new avenues, the podcast, the YouTube, which I think are such a great thing to add to it, because it's taking us out to a wider audience. It's taking us into lots of different topics and areas related to the C64 and retro gaming that we're all interested in. I think that's, in a way, perhaps we needed that downtime, that breakaway, to find the new purpose again, to find that mojo, as they say. But yeah, as I say, this sort of if you like to call it the new era of SceneWorld.
Well, I mean, you are responsible for that as well, because you surprised me in May 2010 when I was at your house, and I woke up. You actually were sitting in front of a computer like, oh, by the way, I pulled out the hard disk drive from an old laptop and I got all the texts together. We got an intro by János from Hungary that we can use, so we can all put it together and release it. And then the feedback on CSDB was so positive that I asked, like, hey guys, do we want to continue?
Yeah.
And then we simply did.
Yeah. Well, as I say, that was, I think that was perfect timing, really. First time we'd met in person, and you came over to England for a visit, and that was a lot of fun to do. Writing the editorial live at my house. So I'm glad you got the chance to visit, and I'm glad we got the chance to put SceneWorld back on the map.
Actually, there is a photo of that moment.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
We'll put it right here so everyone can see that.
I was actually asked if we can take a photo for this floppy disk book. I think I told you about it, by the Dutch and Portuguese researchers that interviewed us about floppy disks. And they were actually asking if we have a photo where we work on SceneWorld. And I was like, the only photo I can think of is this particular photo. So I would tell them that I would ask you if you are okay when I send it to them.
Oh, you can use it. The room's a mess, but yeah, you can use it. Mind you, that room is still a mess, because at the moment most of my computer collection is still sitting in that room, and that's 5 miles away from me at the moment. Because since I got married and moved in with my wife, I'm sort of my collection is in another castle. So
but you are working on moving over the collection, or
not in the foreseeable future, because this is a really small house. I haven't got room for it here.
I see. I see.
The room I'm in at the moment, there's a huge pile. Just to my right, there's a huge pile of books. Some of them unopened.
Well, but 5 miles is not
Oh
very
yeah, no.
not a big
it's not that far away.
We're looking to move into a bigger place.
Oh, even better. Even
So
better.
hopefully then I'll have a nice office space, a nice man cave, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah. Talking about which, I remember the first time AJ saw your Twitter. AJ's comment was like, "Oh, Andrew is a brand of himself. Look how much followers he has on Twitter."
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I did quite well quite quickly on Twitter. Obviously because there was quite a few contacts I had through Retro Gamer magazine, which I've been writing for since 2003. So instantly, when I went on, it was suggesting, oh, follow this person because you know them, follow this person because they're tweeting about the same topic. And so, yeah, I quickly got quite a following on Twitter. I think I'm well over 3,000 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite good. And yeah, so yeah, it's been interesting, that one. I've actually managed to get in touch with quite a few people through Twitter. I've won a couple of Twitter competitions as well, which is always nice when you win something. But yeah, so do try and keep that one updated regularly as new stuff arrives, as I do new stuff.
Yeah, well, when I say you're a brand of your own kind of, I mean it's the truth, because there is what you do with Scene World, but you're also like, when people talk about Andrew Fisher, they just know who that is. He's a guy within the 64 scene. You've had books, you've had, all these different magazines you've worked for. So it's like you say the name and people know who it, you're a personality unto yourself. It's not like, like when people think of Joerg, Joerg is tied to Scene World. I mean, that's kind
That's
of
all I do.
Well, no. I'm just saying there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's what you're kind of connected to.
Yeah, I guess it was quite flattering. Mark Hardesty, who wrote the book A Gremlin in the Works, looking at Gremlin graphics, which is an amazing book. I believe there's a reprint coming up from Bitmap Books soon. He dubbed me the retro gaming guru on Twitter,
right?
Exactly.
which is rather cool. If I do see a sort of a question, or do you remember, or what was the game, I do try and sort of put in a reply, and my hit rate's pretty good on that. So
Yes.
Yeah.
You are seen as an expert on video games.
Sort of another string to my bow has been at sort of the various retro events in the UK. I've also been sort of leading the panel discussions and interviewing people, and that is a lot of fun to do. Yeah, that's a lot of fun to do, researching and talking to them at the events, and and getting the chance to meet people whose games I love to play myself is just such an honor. I mean, I remember the first Back in Time live event I went to in 2002. I was just in awe of everyone there. I was so shy, I just couldn't speak to anyone. I saw Jeff Minter of Llamasoft. I couldn't go up and talk to him. I mean, I did talk to John Hare and Richard Joseph at that first show, and they were great people. Carl Muller, the programmer, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, and Speedball 2 on the C64. Great guy.
Are they Hero Turtles in England too?
Yeah, they were Hero Turtles in England, renamed here because of that. Yeah, so
Germany too. Yeah, everywhere else it's called Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. In the US, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then
it's originally Ninja, and then because of the violence, they renamed it Hero here.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It took over the same name.
But then the strange thing was then when the first of the live action films came out, that was then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
right. That's true.
In the UK.
It's just for the cartoons and the kids stuff.
Yeah.
By the way, is that just me, or is my video frozen kind of?
That's just you.
That's me.
Fine here.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, so it's an interesting aside there. Somehow got on the Turtles. So meeting those guys in recent years, fantastic opportunity I had a couple of years ago to go and meet Andrew Braybrook, the programmer of Uridium and Paradroid. To actually go to his house and talk to him. He was there with Chris Wilkins of Fusion Retro Books, who did the Zap annuals in recent years and is now doing the new Zap magazine because Zap is back in a big way.
Really?
Yes. So
wow.
Kickstarter. We're on to issue 3. We're working on issue 3 right now.
Nice.
Okay, well, okay, yeah. Well,
I'll come back to that in a minute, perhaps.
But from the past, Zap was always coming like an issue like every couple of months or years?
Well, originally back in the 80s and 90s, it was a monthly magazine.
Right.
And then, as I say, Chris Wilkins did the free annuals. So 2019,
Exactly.
2020, 2021, done an annual each. Well, sorry, 2018, 2020, 2021. So we've done 3 of the last 4 years. We've done an annual. The first one was rounding up sort of the last 10 years of releases. And the next 2 have been a year's releases. And he managed to negotiate with Future Publishing for the rights to the names Zap, Crash, Amtix as well for the Amstrad. And so now officially it's back as a bi-monthly A5 magazine.
Nice.
It's funded initially through a Patreon page. If you go zapmagazine.co.uk or search on Patreon for Zap64, you'll find it there. So patrons can pledge each month for either a digital PDF or a printed copy, and they get the advanced copies printed first, and then the remainder of the print run then goes on sale. But you only pay in the months the magazine comes out. So it comes out every 2 months. You pay every 2 months for the magazine, or you can take the chance on order when it goes on general sale. But yeah, so it's the same mix of things that was in the original Zap, so reviews and features, news and previews. Patrons at the moment are getting an exclusive cover disc, starting with issue 2. So there was a demo of the recent Nixie the Glade sprite and full game Snow Wars from Monty Boyd. Issue 3's cover disc has got some great stuff on there. Ghost Bunny, forthcoming game from Bimbalade, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, so definitely worth getting on the Patreon if you want to get involved with that.
Wow,
cool,
nice.
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm back on Zap. I'm back reviewing games. I'm back writing features. Professor Brian Strain has been resurrected.
Wonderful.
He's been in the annuals the last couple of years, and he popped up a couple of times in some other features. So
very cool.
And you also worked on books. I think your first book was in 2008.
Yeah,
because I remember I got a honorable mention in the editorial for being a good friend or something like.
Yes, in the acknowledgements for being a loyal C64 supporter. Yes, that's the Commodore 64 book, 1982 to 19XX, reviewed over 200 games ranging from 1982 to 2007, which was the year I actually sat and wrote the book. Andrew Rollings of Hive Books had done the ZX Spectrum book beforehand, which is 1982 to 1992.
Right.
And again, I took the chance, wrote to him and said, look, do you want someone to do the C64 version? And he said, okay. Go ahead, write it. And I did. And Andrew designed it. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. Obviously, because that's a lot of words to write, a lot of screens to grab, a lot of games to play. So yeah, that was about 8 months' work in total to write that book. But yeah, that was. I'm so glad I did it. I'd wanted to write a book about the C64 back in the 90s. I wrote the foreword to a book back in the 90s because I was in Zap, and so that started me thinking: could I write a book? Could I write a whole book myself? And then the opportunity comes along, you take it. So
yeah. And if you can find a copy of it, because I don't think it's currently being printed, but
it's no, there was only ever the one print run.
Right. If you can find a copy of it, they go for ludicrous amounts of money.
They go for ludicrous amounts of money. But, and here we have a little Scene World exclusive for the podcast tonight.
Ooh.
Later this year, there will be an ebook edition of the Commodore 64 book, 1982 to 19XX.
Nice.
The first time in ebook.
Awesome.
Available in various formats. So that's currently being worked on.
Gonna throw some air horns in there.
So that's a little exclusive for you tonight.
Awesome.
And there will be a paper edition afterwards?
No, because this is the original book. This won't be going back into print.
Too bad.
The sequel will be going into print.
Yeah, but people can always take the PDF and print it out at home on their home printers. and then just staple them together. And,
Yeah, I don't think that one quite sunk in. I'll repeat it. The sequel will be in print.
Yeah. Oh, a sequel.
The Commodore 64 book 19XX to 2022.
Nice.
Coming
Also written by you.
Coming August 2022.
Ooh.
Sweet.
In a year. Wow.
Yeah.
To mark the 40th anniversary of the Commodore 64.
Where do we pre-order? Where do I sign up?
Pre-orders aren't open yet. There'll be a new website open later in the year. c64books.co.uk.
Awesome.
Because it's not just the ebook, it's not just the sequel. There are several other projects I'm working on at the moment, more retro gaming related books, and
you are getting your own you are becoming your own publisher, or what's the plan?
What I'll be doing, I'll be using one of the print on demand services for the print copies.
POD.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have the space, room, time to handle hundreds of books myself. So I'll be going through print on demand. I think that's the sensible way to do it these days, because I don't want to be a publisher.
Right. And can I get my copy autographed?
There will be opportunities to get autographed copies, making sure that thing is available. What I'm hoping to do is fund through pre-orders rather than Kickstarter or anything like that. Again, I think that's too complicated. Again, there's a lot of logistics to handle that make things tougher. But as it stands, those are the plans as we sit here tonight. So
nice,
very cool.
Nice.
I am jazzed.
Well, that was the idea. That's why I wanted to drop the news.
Yeah, very cool.
So you're actually how to say, turning from a magazine editor in a book author, kind of.
Well, I mean, it's writing. Writing is what I do. So that's what that's what I do. And as I say, it's a big moment. 40 years of the Commodore 64. We've got to mark it somehow. We've got to remind people how important the Commodore 64 is in terms of computing history, because I seriously doubt without the Commodore 64 whether there'd be a computer in every home right now.
Right.
So many people got an early experience with Commodore computers, the PET, the VIC-20, the Commodore 64.
Yeah, and all the glory goes to the PC and to the Apple II. That's
exactly. But Apple II wasn't even first in the race in 1977.
Exactly.
Apple were third in 1977 because Tandy sold the most.
Right.
PET was second. Apple were hand building and were in third place.
Right.
But didn't the book On the Edge, The Rise and Fall of Commodore from Brian Becknell already correct the history for the most part?
That has a lot of really good facts and a lot of myth busting in it, even down to the fact at one point Commodore nearly bought Apple. Commodore nearly bought Apple. Apple couldn't produce fast enough. Apple were looking around.
I remember that this book was the marking point to correct history.
Yeah.
Was released in 2005.
Yeah, and Brian Bagnall has gone on to produce the second volume, the Amiga Years, and is now working on the early years as well, which has gone even more depth into what happened before.
Man, could you imagine if Commodore had bought Apple? That would have been.
It's interesting. I think things would have been slightly different. I don't think Commodore would have still been around as a company, because I think Commodore as a company was flawed from day one.
Oh, absolutely.
That's another story.
Yeah.
I think there'd been slight differences in certain aspects of what we think of as the modern computer. I think the PC might have been even slower to take over if Commodore had been more successful.
I mean, here's the thing. Just yesterday, at the time we are recording this, the Nostalgia Nerd actually released a video about the branding of Commodore and what the Italians did to the brand. So there is footage of AJ's review in it, and my horrible unboxing video, which I hate. I mean, you would think that stuff we did 6 years ago now would be a research point, a reference for a video of a big YouTuber.
But see, this is the point. If we're out there collecting this history, writing it down in the disc mag, keeping it alive in the podcast and YouTube, it's there for the future, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's there for the future. So
yeah, I mean, I still remember how we got this podcast interview. I was on my way to the Frankfurt Film Museum on a Wednesday, walking down the street because we were participating in the evening on a live stream with AJ and me. And our retro / cosplay / movie guests. And while I'm walking down, I was sending messages and receiving messages from those two Italians, trying to convince them that
Massimo
we have
and Paolo.
to interview them. Exactly. Massimo Conosciani and Paolo Besser.
Yeah. Now there's been a fascinating thread on Lemon 64 forum recently about Italian software, and particularly about the fact that so much of the software sold in Italy was pirated, basically.
Yeah.
It was just rejigged, altered versions of commercial games from other countries. And I found that interesting myself. I mean, that's again, you see, this is where we're talking about the scene world. Well, the scene was very different in very different countries. You take I mean, going back to the history of Commodore, in the mid 80s, machines like the Plus4 and the C16, Commodore dumped a lot of that inventory in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So countries like Hungary had a huge scene around the Plus4. That didn't happen, say, in Italy or France. And again, in Poland there was a huge following for the Atari machines. Atari dumped hundreds of thousands of Atari 8-bits in the mid 80s in Poland. Those guys became Royal Atari users, upgraded to the ST. So you got all these Polish demo groups making wonderful demos on the ST, whereas you got the French who stuck with Commodore, and they're on the Amiga.
Even in like places like the UK, the C16 and the Plus4, the C16 in particular had way more of a foothold than it got in the US, because there was a direct competitor to the, I want to say, the ZX something Spectrum or
ZX
whatever.
Spectrum,
yeah, because they were closer in specs.
Yeah.
The two of those than the 64 was.
The main thing with the C16, it was closer in price to the Spectrum as well. So the parents are going into the shop and trying to buy a new computer for their kid in 84, 85. They'll look at the Commodore 64, which is nearly £200, and then look at the C16, which has just been slashed to 99. And you think, all right, we'll go with the C16.
Right. Yeah. And the Spectrum, I believe there was a variant of that sold in the US for a bit, but nobody bought it. I've never seen one.
Timex. The
Timex Sinclair.
Timex T1000 and various other models they sold it under. There's a very funny story, and I think it's repeated in On the Edge as well by Brian Bagnall, where Commodore for a while was doing an exchange, sending your 8-bit machine for a rebate on your brand new C64. And I'm not sure how true the story is, but it's been repeated often enough. And it's in the book, so I'm going to take it. It must have been happening. They said that people at the Commodore factory were using the Timex T1000 as a doorstop.
Yeah, right.
I read that too. I remember.
Yeah, people would just buy them because they were dirt cheap. Yeah. And they'd buy them and they'd send them in.
They'd buy one, send it in, get the money off the C64.
Yeah.
Commodore didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
Now the question is, if ZX Spectrum was so big in the UK, why you didn't get one? Why did you go for the Commodore 64?
Now that's an interesting one in itself. It's an interesting one itself. So the first time I ever used a computer was at school. In the UK, we had the BBC Micro.
Yes.
There was the computer literacy program run by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. And the idea was to encourage people to use computers and to teach people how important they could be in everyday life. And I think that was a very forward-looking program. France had a similar program, but it wasn't as good. And the machines that produced, the Thompson, were terrible in terms of the hardware. I've spoken to a couple of French programmers, and they both said, no, you don't want to use that. But the BBC was an interesting one because Sinclair was one of the companies bidding for it, but they lost out to the company from Cambridge in the UK called Acorn Computers. And Acorn, literally the last day before the guys were coming up to see from the BBC to see the machine, finally got their machine working properly. There's a film, you can find it on YouTube, it's called Micromen, which is about the rivalry between Acorn and Sinclair, and it's a dramatization of some of the events in it, and it's leading up to a memorable moment where Chris Curry of Acorn and Clive Sinclair of Sinclair have a fist fight in a Cambridge pub. But yeah, so Acorn was a very forward-looking company even then, because while they were doing research into the 8-bit computer that was going to become the BBC Micro in schools up and down the country, they were also looking into a new area of computing, the reduced instruction set computer, or RISC chip. The idea being you can do more faster with less instructions by changing the structure of the processor.
Right.
And that research led to advanced RISC machines, the chip manufacturer. And if you've got a smartphone...
Or the Acorn RISC machine as it was originally.
Yeah. If you've got a smartphone sitting near you, if you've got mobile devices, so many of them have chips.
Or the new M1 Mac, the new M1 Max as well.
Indeed, yes. So, so Acorn is very important in terms. But in terms of the UK market, it was very much down to the price that determined the computer you got. I had a friend, went to his birthday party. He got a BBC and a VIC-20. Very jealous of him. Then, go around with other friends. They got a ZX81 and type in a program, run it, screen goes blank while it does something. So not very sophisticated. But when it came to getting a computer at home, it was a case of my grandparents and my parents put some money together and for a mail order catalogue, ordered a Commodore 64. And it's as simple as that. That's the one they chose. It came with the data set, and it came with a couple of games. Arcadia 64, which took 18 minutes to load. And 3D Time Trek, which was an import from Kingsoft in Germany, published under Anirog in the UK, which is Anil and Roger. And their names to put together to become Anirog. Later became Anco. And so we got a Commodore 64 at home, and in a great example of Commodore engineering prowess, the power pack was faulty.
Of course.
So we try and tune it into the TV, not getting a picture. End up having to send it off. So we have to wait 2 weeks to get this power pack back before we can actually play our brand new computer.
Yeah.
Woo. Here's the thing. The BBC Micro was actually famous for one game. And that would be Revs, which is a Formula 3 game.
I would say there's more to the BBC than Revs. I would say some of the top games on the BBC would be Elite, the space trading game by David Braben and Ian Bell. I mean, Elite is still around today as Elite Dangerous. I mean, and David Braben is one of the leading lights of the UK games industry now, running Frontier Development. You've got Revs is a game by Jeff Crammond. A great game. I love playing it on the BBC. I love playing it on the C64. The only drawback with the original version on the C64 is you have to use an analog joystick. You can't use a digital joystick originally with it. The hackers put that option in eventually. But Revs Plus then has extra tracks and a digital.
Here's the thing. I always wonder which analog joystick can you use for Revs on the
There's
Commodore?
2 or 3. There's the ones you can use from the Tandy TRS-80. They have a 9-pin port. So
because I got one from Choi King, but that doesn't really work.
Yeah, you have to find one that was made right back in those early 80s. You won't get a modern analog joystick to work with it now.
No, it's not modern, but it's made for the Amiga. And
I don't know if that one would work.
Yeah, and that doesn't work, despite it has the same
lines.
So. Right. Yeah, so I have to ask you later in person, in private.
So BBC games, the one I'm particularly fond of on the BBC is the Repton series, which is a lot like Balderdash, although when the first game was created, the creator hadn't actually played Balderdash. He'd just seen a picture of it in a magazine and created his own. So Repton is a lizard. He runs around a cave collecting diamonds and has to avoid falling boulders, digs through the dirt. Sounds a lot like Balderdash, but that's a great series. The Commodore 64 got a conversion of Repton free, and that has a screen, a map designer, and a graphic editor built in, so you can redesign the graphics and make your own maps with it. And myself and my brother Chris, my older brother Chris, spent hours making maps with Repton free. we used to plot them out on squared paper first, and then sit at the computer and put them in. So that was something fun we used to do. So so that's a good game that came across from the BBC. And I mentioned Revs by Jeff Crammond. I mean, Jeff was a genius programmer. You look at his back catalogue.
Or still
well,
is?
it still is. He's not done much recently, but you got Revs, you got the Sentinel, the Sentry in the US. You got Stunt Car Racer.
Oh yeah.
On C64 and Amiga. Yeah. You then got the Formula One Grand Prix games on Amiga.
On a PC later.
Yeah.
I remember F1 GP2, which was released on a PC in '96.
Yeah.
That was delayed for 8 months. And me as a little teenager, I was impatiently waiting for the final release. Yeah, I mean, it took 8 months to. I mean, that was an order. It wasn't like pre-order, you know. It was like normal order. It was like I was orders in Germany because the mail trader said it was released, but it wasn't.
I mean, Nobby the Aardvark on the C64, that was nearly a year late, and First Samurai was reviewed and was about to be released, and then Microsoft went down, and that was nearly a year before that one came out for Ubisoft. So it does happen.
Yeah. I remember that one, and the first part of the Formula One Grand Prix, those first one, which also came on Amiga and later on PC in '93, I think it was.
Yeah, '93.
That actually had music from Dave Lowe.
Yes.
Which we also interviewed a couple of times.
Yeah.
Very, very much a classic. But it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned Elite, not only refs for the BBC Micro, but I'm always dying for racing games. So that's, of course, my reason why the BBC Micro stands for it. Yeah.
Yes, there was a brilliant book released last year, Acorn: A World in Pixels. I don't know if that's still available. And that's a brilliant book for looking at the history of the BBC Micro and the Acorn Electron, and talking to loads of the programmers there. So that's an interesting one. I can't remember if I've done an unboxing on that one yet, but
you have done a lot. You have done a lot. Yeah.
But, so I mean,
it's amazing.
That's something I've been working on sort of in the last couple of weeks. Is my own YouTube channel. No Man 1974.
Nice.
We've just hit 100 subscribers over there.
I know. Yeah, you made a special video for it,
yes.
Coded on the Commodore 64, right?
Yes, with the firework, the complete computer fireworks celebration kit from Activision. It was a late night I suddenly thought, right, 100 subscribers. How do I celebrate that? Celebrate. Aha, fireworks.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun little twist to do something with the C64 to celebrate it. And I've done a load of stuff in the last week. I've done some new sort of strands to the channel, which will be going online. At the time of recording, there's a new video going live tomorrow. The first of the new merch stand strain. So that will be interested to see how that one goes down. And there'll be more retro shelf for the books and more unboxings and some gameplay stuff coming up soon.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
So I want to go back to the early days a little bit because I'm kind of jealous of the UK scene that you guys had. You know, because you had the BBC. You had a really kind of cool, like you had the BBC Micro, you had the Spectrum, you had the C64, and you had cool services like what's the
CompuNet, you mean?
yeah, was that
CompuNet.
yes
Was the online service. Yeah,
yes
there's fascinating
cool services like that.
CompuNet.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was the national telecommunications company, British Telecom, put the money into it. So it was basically servers that were running just for Commodore 64 fans, central database, and in a lot of ways it's it was a mini version of the web in that you would have your own page and you could upload software to that page for other people to download. There was chat rooms, there was there was up and down voting.
Yeah. Nice.
But so quite a few of the big name people in terms of the demo scene and the games programming scene were on CompuNet. You could see stuff by Jeff Minter of Llamasoft. You could see stuff from the big demo groups. You could see the new tune. You could hear the new tune from Rob Hubbard. See the new picture from the graphic artists on CompuNet. Before it was then spread around by mail.
Yeah, in fact, that trap demo from the Ash, was that Ash and Dave or
no, it's Tony Graver and Ben Daniel.
Tony, that's right, that's correct.
Yes, it's from the game Trap.
Right. Yes.
Often known as the Gladiator demo.
Yeah.
They then did a version of it, sort of promoting CompuNet.
Yeah. Right. I remember seeing that and being totally confused because I had seen the original Trap demo and then I saw this other one that's got all this text popping up about CompuNet. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. I'm guessing you guys have seen the recent Trapped Again from the Gub Data party.
No, I haven't.
No, not yet.
Oh, you need to check. You need to check.
Oh,
that
wow.
out.
Yeah.
I'd put a link to that one in the description
Okay.
because that's an absolutely amazing demo. It's a modern remake of the Trap demo.
Nice.
Complete with remixed music and graphics. It's absolutely top notch.
You have to send that to us.
I'll send you the link for that because I reckon a lot of people would like to see that one.
Yeah.
So CompuNet was very big. There's even a few stories. There's you can look it up on Facebook, CompuNet Corner, run by Mike Berry, who was on Kernel on CompuNet. He's gathered lots of information over the years about CompuNet. And the software houses were actually using it to swap stuff around as well. So if they needed to send files to each other, they'd use the mailbox on CompuNet because it was faster than trying to dial into each other's company computers.
Yeah. And we had Q-Link over here, Quantum Link, which was sort of like a C64 only, network, but it wasn't.
You see, well, we're jealous of the fact you had Habitat over there.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The online game with the avatars.
Yeah.
That I'd have loved to have played that back in the day. That would have been mine back in '88. So. But
well, that got neutered pretty quick though, because by the time that I was there, it was Club Carib, and it was not even half of what Habitat was.
It was obviously Q-Link then became America Online, AOL.
Yeah, and that's where it all went wrong. But again, you had on CompuNet you had demo guys doing stuff, and it was like there was a big cool scene. Q-Link had more of it was more of like your average, just your C64 user on there. There wasn't really if there was a demo made by somebody on there, it was invariably or inevitably done with a demo maker. Deluxe Screen Maker 4 I think was real big. So it was always one of like 3 songs by Rob Hubbard playing way too fast. and they would just kind of take a picture, they'd make a koala picture and just sort of stick that in there and write a scroll text, and that was the entire. And half the time it was an awful picture, but that was what passed for demos in the U.S. On there at the time, which was kind of.
But then I think it must have been interesting too to have sort of people like Jim Butterfield and that being online on those message boards and talking to the fans, to the people directly. Because I think that was. Commodore had their own sort of information network for a while on CompuServe and this sort of thing. That must have been very interesting.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, they would have the auditorium rooms where you could go in and they do a little presentation and stuff. I remember talking to, sending messages to Jeff Jones from Lodestar.
Oh yes.
On that, because he was on there as I think his green name was Future Tech or something. But I remember talking to him over that and just being completely like awestruck by the fact that I'm talking to this guy.
Different scenes for different parts of the world again.
Yeah, yeah. And you also there was another service that was over the TV as well, correct?
I'm not sure which one you mean.
It was like a graphical sort of.
Oh, you're talking about teletext? Or
yes. Yeah, you got the teletext system,
yes,
which we didn't have in the US.
Yes. Yeah, that's, on the UK TV system, there's sort of what they call the spare lines,
right?
Which are out of the normal display area, and they could send information like that. They used to send software through that as well. You could have a special decoder you could attach to the BBC Micro, the ZX Spectrum, and the C64, and you could download information and complete programs through that. And teletext was a great source of information about computer stuff. There was a regular on what we call Channel 4, which is an independent service. They had a service called Digitizer, and that was cool because that was funny. That was full of very puerile sense of humor, but they'd review the latest games and totally slate the one that everyone else likes. They'd constantly pick on the Amiga owners.
Teletext we had here too in Germany.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but never me, because my family thought it's too expensive to get, so we never had it.
Yeah, the guy behind one of the writers behind Digitizer, Paul Rose, aka Mr. Biffo, is still around. Still runs a YouTube channel which is sort of diversified into very strange areas involving baked beans. I'll go.
Okay. Well,
if you want to go down that particular rabbit hole, just search for Digitizer 2000 or Venus.
Okay.
I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah. Fascinating.
You see, Paul Rose also writes a regular column for Retro Gamer magazine here in the UK, which is great fun.
Yeah. Now, and conversely, despite the fact that you guys had these cool services and a much more a much more kicking scene than NTSC really had built up at the time, a lot of your the UK and Europe also were kind of like hobbled by dataset, which never was a thing that really took off in the US.
The UK was really held back by the speed of the data set. I mean, the majority of users, well into the late 80s, were still using the tape deck to load games.
Right.
And there's sort of two reasons for that, really. The disk drives were always horrendously expensive in the UK. The actual computer, when it first went on sale here, was £399, which at the time would have been close to $500 in exchange rate. The disk drives started at £200, so near enough $400. So if you're going to shell out for the computer, it's nearly the same again to get a disk drive and disks.
Right.
And Commodore took the decision to crack down, particularly in the UK here, they cracked down on the people who were making the clone drives. So drives like the Enhancer, the MSD, the Oceanic, they wanted them out of the market. And so they got to the situation where the best deal then was to buy a computer and disk drive bundle direct from Commodore. And that was the decision my parents asked me in 92. Do you want to stick with the Commodore 64, get a new 64 and disk drive, or do you want to upgrade to an Amiga? And at that point, I said, I'll stick with the 64. I've got all this software, got all this knowledge. I stayed. That's partly why.
Yeah.
I'm still a C64 fan, right? It's still the biggest machine in my life.
Right.
But you got your disk drive in 89.
That's when I got my first drive. Yeah, that was a 154 one, the original bulky model that had been in a TV repair shop and had been in a display model there. And I saved up money from a paper round, and my parents chipped in some money, and I think that was about £100. So it was less than a new one at the time, but it's still a lot of money. And I say that's when I got GEOS. That's when I started dabbling in music and machine code programming around that time.
See, I got my 1541. It was the 2 model, the 1541 2, the smaller one, which came as part of the bundle with I don't know how much it cost. It was a Christmas present for my grandparents, so it came with the 64 and the disk drive and an amber monitor, which
cool.
hobbled, which didn't I don't see colors that great, so it didn't really bother me too much until I realized like at one point, like I plugged it into a TV because I didn't have the monitor with me, and I'm like, wait a minute, like what is this? Like I'm missing all this. Like I thought that's what it was just supposed to look like because I knew nothing about the C64 when I got it. I just figured it was an orange screen, and I didn't get my second drive for years, and then it was just I think it was like $40. I bought it off of somebody from a BBS. And like we met in like some like weird like alleyway, and it was a really weird like I was making a drug deal, but instead of he's handing me this giant disk drive.
Yeah. Well, when my older brother Chris went off to university, he actually bought himself a new 64 and drive then to take off to university with him then. Yeah.
Yeah, and my upgrade, at one point I was looking at I was really into the Amiga. Although I knew nothing about it. All I knew, there were these 10X catalogs that, the Computer Express, it was mail order stuff.
Yes.
And they made it look really good, but you can't see what any of the games really look like because it's just a little black and white picture the size of a postage stamp. And I had saved up just enough money to get an Amiga 1200. I was putting away lunch money from school and all that stuff, and I just saved up enough, and Commodore went out of business. And the catalogs weren't coming anymore. And it's like, so, and around that time too, a friend of mine said, hey, I got this old Commodore system. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah, I'll take it because I got to now figure out how to stretch out my C64-ing because at that point it was getting a little bit long in the tooth. This is like 96, 97. And it was a 128. And so my upgrade became a Commodore 128, which is a major upgrade over the 64, and kept me going for until 2001. I used that as my main machine.
Yeah. So as I said, I got I got a new C64 and disk drive in '92. So then, with the money I'd made from the writing, one of the first things I did buy myself then was a Super Nintendo in 1994. Saw an advert in the local paper. Guy was selling a SNES with games and controllers and all this sort of thing. He was upgrading to this brand new thing called the Sony PlayStation. he wanted to import one of these brand new Sony PlayStations, so he needed the money quickly. And I thought, so let's go. So that was then really the start of what became my retro gaming collection. Then, because I'm already a generation behind.
Right.
Everyone's going to the PlayStation. I'm going to the SNES. So and that's I've sort of repeated that pattern along the way. So when everyone else was, I'm getting the Xbox 360, I shout out for an original Xbox.
Right. Yeah, Joerg, he said SNES.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. I still say it. I say SNES because that's what I heard first on TV in the UK. I worked on the Super Nintendo Anthology a couple of years, the big book from the French publishers.
Right.
Did hundreds of reviews for that and some interviews and features and all sorts for that. That's what paid for the new laptop I'm on. So while we were doing that, all the way through, every day it was, you must put Super NES every time you write it. It's Super NES. So in my head it's still SNES because that's how I say it, but it should be Super NES because it's the Super.
Well, we always called it. We always called it either just a Super Nintendo or we said SNES. That was the thing. That was,
That's also how we said it here in Germany. SNES. The first time I heard it was on YouTube when a 20 years old YouTuber was saying like, and by the way, the SNES. I was like, oh, okay.
We were like, what the what? The SNES? Yeah, it turned into like this big thing. Like, no, who calls it the SNES? Like,
the Americans would say NES when you the original.
Mm-hmm.
Famicom in Japan, NES in Japan. Well, in Europe, because of the way we pronounce our vowels, a lot of people would call that NES.
Right.
So that's why it's then Super NES, SNES.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
Makes sense.
So yes, I mean, as I said, as I referred to earlier, I've got quite a large collection now, about 20 odd different consoles and computers. Somewhere around, I think it's around 10,000 games now.
Wow. Yeah, I know. When I knew you, you were, let's say, like 3,000.
Yeah,
So that number grew by now.
It's close to 10,000 now with
Wow.
all the various handhelds and that sort of thing. I've got a little collection now of the recent mini consoles. So I got the DTV when that C64 DTV when that first came out, 2005. And I got the C64 mini, the C64 full size. Not long got the Core Graphics mini. What was the TurboGrafx 16 in the States? So that was a nice Christmas present. I got just last Christmas. So
you gonna get the Mega 65 when it comes out?
I'm torn at the moment. I've just set up a Ko-fi page to try and fund my YouTube, to get new stuff for my YouTube. The stretch goal I've put on that at the moment is to get an Ultimate 64 Elite. So I think that's what I'm going to go for first. I was really tempted when they put up the first round of developer boards for the Mega 65.
For 300 euros, I think, and 800 euros. 800.
Yeah, it was 800.
A lot more would have been about. I think it would have been about £600, maybe even more for me at the time. But it was sorely tempting. But it's just the time factor to really push into it. Whereas if I get the Ultimate 64, you see, because I'm doing things like the game testing and music and that sort of thing, I think I'm going to get more use out of that.
Right.
But yeah, I'd love the Mega 65 down the line because there's so much potential.
Yeah, it's so much potential, and it's like one of those things where like I'm torn about it too, because it's like it can do so much, and yet there's no ecosystem for it at all. Like there's no software.
I'm surprised you are torn. We interviewed those guys.
No. I love the machine, and I totally want the machine, but it's one of those things where it's like there's no software written for it, and there needs to be a base of software to make it a useful machine.
I think what they need to do is they need to look at what's been happening with the Spectrum next, which is the next generation of the Sinclair machines.
Yes,
that has gone pretty quickly. They've obviously funded their second run of boards, second production run now on Kickstarter in the last year. Unfortunately, with the current global situation and supplies, that's been delayed quite a bit. And unfortunately, I think the same could happen to Mega 65 when that goes into production. There could be quite a substantial delay to that coming once they finalise specs and that sort of thing. But that does then give people time to, talk to the existing publishers out there and say, are you doing a Mega 65 label? Will you be doing, And there's going to be the support there. Sites like itch.io where you can find lots of great C64 downloads at the moment. Yeah. The digital downloads on there are fantastic. It's so easy to find stuff. I think there's going to be, you're going to be able to get the Mega 65 stuff. It's just whether enough is then going to go back into, as you say, the infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, history is repeating there, because we had a few episodes back. We had Jerry Ellsworth in the interview who did DTV, and she said she received hate messages and stuff. Among those, also a message from Vice Team saying like, your DTV is not a real C64, we'll never support it and stuff. And nowadays there is
the Vice team saying it's not a real 64 as they code their emulator for other machines.
Right. And nowadays there is a DTV version of Vice.
Yeah.
I think with the release.
I think I could understand some of the I don't understand the hatred towards it. I can understand some of the antipathy towards the DTV in what it represents, because it was a toy. It was sold through toy distribution channels from a toy company. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it wasn't a serious product. But then if you look underneath, the hood, if you'll pardon the expression, Jerry put the connections on the board so you could wire in a keyboard and extra storage and this sort of thing. So it was neither one thing or the other in the end.
Right.
Whereas the full size C64 and and even increasingly the C64 Mini, with the firmware updates that Retro Games Limited have brought forward, it's more and more practical. It's a great
emulation.
It's a great way to just quickly play something for the
Yes.
C64, whether that's an old game you remember from back in the day, whether that's a new game they've added to the carousel, whether that's something you've gone on a site like itch.io and bought the digital download. Whack it on a USB drive, stick it in the Mini or the THE64, you're playing the game.
Right.
You know, in that way, that's very different to what the DTV was, because it's a standalone unit,
Right.
a standalone toy.
Yeah.
That first wave of, I was commented on a video the other day about some of the modern sort of plug and play consoles. You can get the Android boxes, the Super Console X, that sort of thing, and how they horses for courses. If you just want to load up an old 8-bit game that you remember playing, yeah, fine. You can get a USB stick, stick it in an HDMI telly, and play it. If you're serious about emulation, you want to upscale it, shaders, all that. Right. You go to a PC and emulate on that. You know, you go to a computer and emulate on that. And again, that first wave of mini consoles, 2004, 2005, the Atari Flashback had sort of the right idea, and it allowed you could wire it so you could plug a real Atari cart into it. But they didn't carry it through.
Right. Yeah.
It went further and further down the toy route. So you get the Namco 6 one that is basically just a NES on a chip.
Yeah. Right.
Reprogrammed to do the classic arcade.
The thing with the thing with the 64 that really kind of holds it back in my view is the lack of connectivity. Like it's a standalone unit. I can't plug a disk drive into it.
No.
I can't plug an old joystick into it. It's USB. It's USB, and there's one output for HDMI, and I can't take a cartridge and plug it into it.
Yeah, I think that is the problem in the original pitch, in the original crowdfunding pitch. They did overplay it and say, "Yeah, we're gonna have all this backward compatibility in it."
Right.
And I think that hooked a lot of people in. I think that was never realistic. Because of the problems of dealing with old hardware. You've got different voltages, you've got different connectors. That was always going to be difficult to achieve. An edge connector for a cartridge sounds like a good idea, but we all know from our own experiences, cartridges don't work a lot of the time when you plug them in.
Yeah.
So,
but on the Commodore 64, it was not such a big issue like on an NES.
Got to do the old
Super NES or Mega.
The 64 was a lot more reliable, I think, than the NES and whatnot.
If you got a decent power pack on.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think in the original funding campaign, they overplayed that aspect of it, and down the line, that has meant people have not exactly felt disappointed with it, but have felt it didn't reach that potential. But as I say, with the firmware updates, with adding new games to the carousel, it's become a really good product for the money.
Yeah.
I remember when this Indiegogo was happening, we were the only people willing to interview Darren Mayburn. And it was so important for him to do this interview. We did it during his Spain holidays.
Yeah.
Over the phone.
Yeah, well, see, he was part of Ironstone, the partners who were involved in the DTV and organising the licensing for the games there because of his connections. And then he been doing a similar role on the C64 Mini in the full size, and has been recently working with the Antstream service for games on there. So
I know.
Now, I think for what it is, the C64 does a good job of, like you said, if you want to just plug the thing in and play a game that you remember from way back when, that's exactly what it's made for. It does the job admirably, even if it's emulated, even if it's, most people aren't going to notice that. Most people aren't going to notice, one of the things that we found early on, Joerg, pointed out that,
the music was
it was like they had frozen the whatever game it is. So it's like you start it up and it like kicks into like it's already in progress. Like the music has already started. Like it's already,
It's quite possible. There, that's what they did.
And that's something that we noticed, and it drove us nuts. And we Joerg sent emails back and forth to them, and I think they may have fixed it, but to the average user,
a year later, yeah.
But to the average user,
I got an instant message from Darren saying, iMessage. Okay, I remember iMessage because it's an iPhone, and he was saying like, yeah, we thought about it.
Yeah.
And after a year, they decide to finally fix it.
Yeah.
Now that's something I found really interesting. I remember when I got my DTV, and the first time I played it, one of the first games I played on it was the original Speedball, which is a great game. I love that. And I noticed there was a glitch on the score panel, and that glitch is exactly the same as if you run it on a real 64.
Right.
So that shows the emulation in the DTV is pretty good.
Because it isn't really emulation, isn't it? Isn't it implementation?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
How it's called?
FPGA.
Yes, FPGA.
FPGA, right?
Yeah. So that works really well, and you can see the same in the emulation in the Mini and the new full size. So for a lot of games, the experience you'll get on the Mini and the full size are good enough, are pretty accurate.
Yes.
And look, it's when you get down to perhaps some more unusual games or some of the more demanding games that you're more likely to notice.
Yeah.
Well, that's not quite right.
Right.
But it's using the Cluanto emulator.
Yes,
it's using Forever 64 because they even have the brands and the logos on the box. I noticed.
Yeah, so it's licensed through because Cluanto licensed the ROMs. So
yeah. Now I've heard some people talking about they want an API to actually get into the guts of the actual machine because they would like to try to program things for whatever the actual hardware of the 64 is.
I mean,
and it's like that's
pretty much the same happened with the DTV. There was for a couple of years there was a really big scene in terms of hacking the hardware,
right,
and then actually getting demos and other games to run on it. So it would be interesting if we could unlock some of that extra processor speed in there and see what you could do.
Right. Yeah, put it like a super CPU mode in it or something. That would be awesome.
I think that might come eventually if but again you see the super CPU is something that suffered from the lack of support, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
I still use it to play Test Drive.
Yeah. Yeah, in certain ways, the super CPU I feel was more popular in the U.S. amongst people because here we had, I feel like a lot of people in the U.S. were diehards where they were going to use this machine until drive it till the wheels fall off, kind of thing. It's like they were dead set against using anything else, and you had a lot of the U.S. users were GEOS users.
Yes.
In which super CPU comes in handy with GEOS because it really speeds things up. I mean just the 128 version of GEOS is 1,000 times better than the 64 version. It makes it so much more usable. Just having 80 columns and just the 2 megahertz processor and whatnot, and burst mode if you got those drives. And that's where I feel like I saw the most use was from older people that have been using this machine for however long and were dead set on continuing to use it. And I feel like there is a shortage. Like we don't know exactly how many super CPUs are sold, and I feel like there's so many super CPUs like in someone's attic from like a family member that passed away because it was largely older gentlemen that used these machines, and like if we could track down all these estate sales where this stuff was being sold, because that's where they all are.
Well, I mean, there is this YouTuber that became infamous, Commander Kang,
infamous,
this eBayer, who we actually had on our guest list, but then we found out that more and more people were saying that he's actually taking devices in for repair, but instead of repairing them, using them to to make clone devices
Yes.
and selling them on eBay again.
He makes it's like the fire drive. It's a you know, the
CMD
Thunder Drive
clone.
and fire. Yeah, CMD
Yeah,
clones,
right.
and there's also an LT kernel clone called the I can't remember what it's called, but it's something ironic. And what I understand is if you deal with him via eBay, if you buy one of his things, like the products are good, but apparently there is some controversy about like people sending things in and he's hanging on to it to try to retro engineer it, or he uses parts from machines that he's fixed to fix other machines. So I don't know exactly what the, you know, again, you know, if you deal with them via eBay, you're fine, but I wouldn't want to. Yeah, I would love one of the CMD, you know, knockoff drives. They look great. They look awesome, But
we heard also that Jim Brain is working on a super CPU clone.
yes.
I definitely have to write to him and see if he's open for an interview.
That would be interesting to see. Yeah, that might make something different. Yeah.
Jim Brain is the one who got the rights to Jiffy DOS.
Yeah, right.
Many people were surprised that there are new versions of Jiffy DOS.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still patching the Jiffy DOS thing.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I mean, there's lots of stuff like that still going on.
Yeah. Well, this is it. We've seen quite a few different new devices this year. Things like the Kung Fu Flash and that sort of thing turning up.
True.
So it's definitely still plenty happening in the Commodore scene.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been testing some new games myself recently. Been testing Solus 2, The Armor of God. That's nearly complete.
That looks good.
It's great fun to play.
There's been some great games coming out. Some great hardware.
Also saw Cross in it again.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember that interview. You were part of that interview. I remember.
I was. Yes.
And suddenly he was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm not also working on recent games, but I also have been working in the 80s with Rob Hubbard and stuff in the same building." And we were like, "Oh my god, that's super interesting. Can we do a second interview for Retro Gamer UK?" That was the only moment in my life where you figured something out you didn't know about a guest before. That never happened ever before. I remember when we had a second interview with Tech Toy.
Yes.
I was totally sitting there listening how you and Stefano Arnold were geeking about the old times and the games and the stories of the industry with Mattel and all that stuff, and was like, oh my god, I'm not totally not needed here.
Well, that's why
you two can do the podcast.
Those are the best interviews where you can just kind of sit back and let the guests do their thing.
That's why it's fun.
The guest. He was a Commodore.
Yeah, that's why it's fun to do what I do, to write about it, to talk to people. I mean, you've spoken to Charles Martinet. Just recently, an amazing interview with him for Retro Gamer magazine, and that's got to be up there, one of the most fun ones I've ever done. Yeah, because he's doing the voices, he's doing the characters and going through, talking about how he got the job, and it's just, I just sat there for 10 minutes listening to him when he talked about how he got the job as Mario.
Yeah, and he's one of the most genuinely nice people on the planet, and it's like the joy that he feels just kind of comes through.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And the best bit then was obviously editing that down for print, because how do you get voices into?
Yeah.
So basically, I had to put sing Super Mario theme in brackets or I'm hit in brackets. And I've got some great feedback on that one, so it worked.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing. I remember we got the interview because Christian Leuenberg back at the day, he was our webmaster, and he did an interview for his Nintendo publication himself before. So I was like, hey, you have been interviewed by a team member before. Can we interview you for our podcast? And I think it was one of the earliest ones.
It was it was pretty early.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you've helped
I
me get a couple of
remember.
interviews as well. So
Yeah.
Pardon?
you've helped me get a couple of interviews as well. I mean, I did John F. Kutcher for Space Taxi. I got
Right.
thanks to you passing on an email. So
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Some people are very difficult to get a hold of. Anyway, Charles Martinet was pretty easy because he wrote like within a day or something. Sure, we can do an interview. The problem was getting the time to do it.
Yeah, he was number six,
story.
and he actually cut his. He was at a convention and he cut it short to come talk to us.
Right.
Like he left early.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah. No, it's quite funny. I made a mistake when I was scheduling the interview with Charles. I put down Thursday the 26th when I meant Friday the 26th. So I'm sitting on Skype at the time we've agreed on the Thursday, and I messaged him, are you ready? And he said, I thought we were doing this tomorrow. I said, oh, have I got the date wrong? He said, yeah, it's tomorrow. I'm in the Vatican. He's about to go on a tour of the Vatican.
Oh, dang.
Because I mean that was lucky timing. He was in Europe on a promotional tour, so we managed to hook up, and less of a time difference to talk to him. So,
but here's the thing. I remember one questioner asked, like, don't you hear often that playing video games makes lonely? And then he was saying like, no, why should it make it lonely and unsocial? I mean, you have cosplay and all that stuff, and it's uniting people because they all have the same hobby and stuff.
Yeah.
And a day later, on that same convention, because it was in Denmark, it was a couple of days, he said like, in the panel, yesterday I was asked in another interview if I don't think that this video game hobby makes lonely and unsocial. It was like, oh my god, he picked up the interview question from our podcast and he remembered and he quoted the question the next day in the panel, and it's on YouTube. And I was feeling so proud. Like, well, oh my god.
That's the thing. If you're talking about video games as a hobby, this sort of stereotype image of the person on their own, right, I don't think is true anymore.
Not at all.
You're not on your own as a gamer. So much of gaming is online. You're communicating with other gamers. So much of the culture around gaming is online or meeting in real person at conventions and events and expos.
Not at the moment, but hopefully.
Not at the moment,
well,
obviously, with the current situation. But even
I mean, there's still virtual stuff, like
exactly, yeah. The big events have held virtual things.
Yeah.
I know some are planning to go back to live events later this year.
Right. Gamescom this year is still going to be. Gamescom is still going to be virtual. You should join us for Gamescom this year.
We'll have to see if I can find some time to do that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
because you'd be awesome. You'd be awesome.
I mean, this year it's a change compared to last year because this year there's only one slot.
Yeah.
And all the other things we will do is virtual booth.
Yeah, right.
That means we don't have any fixed time. You can come in whenever you like. It's pretty straightforward.
It's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? Just like kind of sit there at the computer and wait until someone comes along?
Yeah. Well, the details will come in end of next week. So
Okay.
I'm waiting for the big email from Sven answering all our questions that we collected and sent in.
But you see, even in these difficult times, we can still connect with other gamers. We can
still
interact with the gamers.
Exactly.
We can still wait for the same new games to come out and talk about them or trash them before they've even been played.
Right.
But I'm one of the few crazy ones that actually went to UK, USA, not such a big deal. But actually, I went to Peru, and people were like, "Don't go to Peru, it's dangerous and stuff." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure nobody will kill me." And it's a demo. I was around with demo sceners for 3 weeks. If I get killed or something, at least somebody will pointed out to the demo scene.
And the irony is that he really did get killed when he was there.
No.
We're talking to his ghost. Yeah. We recast him.
No. Yeah, well, I think it's awesome, and I really hope that next year there will be a physical games come again.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Well, I mean, I honestly doubt it. I think there will probably be another wave happening.
Well, we'll have to see what happens this winter. Could be quite serious this winter, but.
Well, I mean, we're already seeing it increase again because people that have their vaccines think I can take my mask off and just go out and be in public, and they're getting sick.
I had to shield for most of last year because of my health issues, because of the medication I'm on. So I mean, I'm still being careful with the mask and that. I'm not planning to go to any events, even if they are happening this year. So
and UK actually is the prime example of one of the first European countries opening everything. And many Americans tell me, like, why do you worry? The pandemic is over. No, it's not.
It's not over.
I don't want to get into politics here. So.
Yeah,
you guys are suffering from much of the same problem that we suffered with.
Yeah.
Well,
you had your own Trump.
I know that you didn't vote for the wrong thing. So. Because I know you well enough.
Yeah.
Well, we got a bit sidetracked here.
We did.
Yes.
So,
that's what else is new?
Is this where we sing the red flag and threaten to overthrow everything?
No, I mean, I was actually just talking to you about it before the recording. I actually find it fascinating that when we did this interview with Commodore Italy and stuff like 6 years ago, that suddenly it's becoming important, and perhaps down the road your books, Andrew, will become important.
I think they already are. Already are important.
But I'd like to think so. I hope that's why the first one was written, was to try and catalogue some of the interesting games. Maybe not the most well-known games, maybe not the best games. It was a long process whittling down a huge spreadsheet of games. Obviously, by that time, 15,000, 20,000 Commodore 64 games have been released. We've had thousands more since. I mean, Gamebase 64 is now over 25,000 games.
That's a lot of games.
That's where something like over the last 20 years, it's 6,000 games been released. So we're still seeing new games being developed. We're still seeing lots of fascinating new ideas pop up every now and then. People looking to old machines for inspiration. The Atari 2600 conversions we've seen quite a few of recently. Looking to modern machines and doing demakes. Paul Collar's games over the last 10 years have been absolutely fantastic. Games like Cannibal, Luftrausers. He's now doing Spelunky on the C64. I mean, who would have thought you'd see that on the Commodore 64? I mean, that's just going to be incredible. Can't wait to play that one myself. So so down the line, writing a book about Commodore 64 games, it's great that I did it, but we need a sequel now. We've got
absolutely.
We'll have another 15 years worth of games to look back. Well, more than 15 years of games to look back to, because there's quite a few of the games between 1994 and 2007 I didn't cover.
Right.
I think deserve a place in the second book.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the third book, you're going to have to pick up from 2007, because there's been some big games since. I mean, Sam's Journey since then. I mean, come on.
Well, Sam's Journey will be in volume 2.
Oh, okay.
You see, it's going to go up to 2022, the second
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so that was going to go up to 2007.
It's actually coming out to the NES soon.
Yes.
Hey, really?
Yes, they're working on the NES conversion.
It's not going to be as good as the 64 version.
It'll be similar, it'll be slightly different.
Yeah,
be interesting to see how that turns out. But so definitely down the line, I'd like people to look back and say, this is a good representation of what the Commodore 64 could do. Some of the interesting, varied, unusual, memorable titles. If your personal favorite isn't in there, start a protest. No. Start a petition, get it in the book. No.
Merman@seaworld.org.
No, seriously, I have spent a lot of time over the last year looking at online threads, looking at various places to see what people consider the best games of recent years to try and narrow it down. I mean, I've still got to narrow it down from the list I've got now. I'm working out how to do it, which will be similar to the first book in that if you mention game A, you can then say in the notes, the trivia about it, you say they also did game B.
Right.
So you've got two in the one entry.
And here's one thing I really love about you. You are putting a lot of effort in getting facts right. I mean, I'm really discussing that with AJ a lot. There are a lot of people on YouTube and on Facebook, especially in the Facebook C64 groups, who think they are experts and are totally saying bullshit. Like a few weeks ago, I've seen a discussion about like the Commodore MPS 802 printer doesn't print graphics. Why? And then somebody replied like, that's strange because that was the graphic model of the printer series. The 801 was the one that was for letter. I'm like, no, that's not true. It's exactly the other way around. The MPS 802 didn't have a graphic mode, but in GEOS it had a driver that was mimicking a graphic mode by printing back and forth a couple of times over the same line. And so the 801 and the 803, which is the successor of the 801, are both the graphic mode printers of the MPS series.
Yeah, and of course the printers that Commodore sold back then, they didn't actually manufacture themselves. They bought in from other manufacturers and put a Commodore badge on.
Right, right. I mean, here in Germany, the Star LC 20NL was very famous, and this printer actually had a cartridge port where you could buy separately a Centronics interface, for the 64 and stuff.
Yes, yeah, you could get them with the Commodore serial IEC port, or you could get them with the standard Centronics. Star. Right. Yeah, I had a couple of Star printers. Well, I bought a Star LC10 second hand, and it was broken in the post. It was annoying. So when it got to me, it was broken. But then when I was writing for the magazines, the one that did a lot of the printing out to send stuff in articles into the magazines was a Star LC200, which I bought brand new.
Wow!
My first printer was a blue chip D1012 daisy wheel printer.
Yeah,
it was
cool.
Such a disappointment, such a horrible disappointment. But I ended up coding or programming a little program that would allow me to print out graphics by just using the period. Yeah. And I wore out so many daisy wheel discs just by like repeatedly hitting that period, and to make like a really rudimentary dot matrix printer.
Yeah. You see, that's the spirit of experimentation that keeps things alive, that keeps things going, isn't it? You try and do something with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
You try to print out a full-page graphic, you're sitting there for about 3 hours while that thing goes.
I saw something really cool on the web the other day. Someone has put up a page that allows you to simulate the print shop on an Apple II.
Ooh, nice.
And so you can go in, you can type in the text, you can choose your graphics, use all the options that are in the original program. It looks exactly on screen, it looks exactly like the original program, and at the end of it you get a PDF out to print.
Awesome.
So you can do your banners and your posters and your greetings cards in the classic print shop.
That's cool. I actually still use the print shop fairly regularly with this. You know, I've got an MPS 803 printer.
Oh, nice one. Nice one.
It's underneath
a
bunch of books.
You got the successor of the 801, which is a graphic.
Right. It's almost exactly the same as the 801.
We've got a Christmas banner I printed on.
As I said, it's the successor of the 801. But I was like, man. And it was not only one person, it was like 3 people, going down the rabbit hole, making it worse and worse and worse.
I will say this on the subject of getting things right. This is one thing the ebook version of the original book is going to allow me to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, right.
There's 3 pages. There's 3 pages I'm not happy with.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, but then I have to admit I'm not expert enough to not. So I didn't notice it. So.
Well, this is the thing. It's because I've actually met one of the people involved, and I've interviewed one of the others, so I know the facts direct from the people themselves.
Ooh,
now.
Nice.
So draw a line under it. It's corrected in the ebook.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's being proofread at the moment. So
awesome. So people should get that as well. Even if they have the original book,
yes,
you've got it. As an actual thing, you should get the PDF version as well.
Yeah, get the PDF version. We're making some. There's some slight tweaks to the design as well to make it more readable. And
so that means you have to send me a lot of links.
Oh yes.
After this conversation, as we spoke to so much things,
we have
like
gone through
the
quite
Trap demo remake,
the
print shop,
the print shop one,
emulation.
I'll get those sent over.
Your future book page URL.
It's not up yet, but that's in the works. So.
Well, when are we going to release this?
The ebook I'm hoping to get out by the end of the year.
Okay.
Nice.
Lot depends on how other projects are going. But yeah, the ebook will be out by the end of this year. And as I say, I'm aiming for August 2022, the 40th anniversary of the Commodore 64, to get the second book.
Okay.
And the second book paper version is coming out in a year. You said August next year.
August 2022. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
So that means I'm looking forward to that, and to 20 years more of Scene World.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll need to have a follow-up podcast about the book in August of 22 when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So mark it down on our calendars.
I mean, now that Apple Podcasts actually changed the limit from 200 episodes per podcast to 400. And I think now it's to 1,000. We are safe for the next 10 years.
Yeah, we can continue.
So we're going to celebrate the 50th birthday of the Commodore 64 as well. Yeah?
Exactly.
I mean, seriously. That's an issue. Yeah. Because originally I worried we would have to do another podcast because the feed is getting too big.
Well,
actually, we are too active for some technical limitations. Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm so glad that you are a part of it since so many years and kept on doing, despite health issues, family, now having a real family and stuff.
I've always considered, as far as like the hierarchy of this magazine goes, I've always considered Joerg and you to be the managing editors. That's you guys are the main thing, and the rest of us are just kind of are the associate editors or contributors or something. But in my brain, it's always been Andrew and Joerg are like the main guys.
Well, we wouldn't have Scene World without everyone involved, without the mix of people.
Right.
It's the mix of people together, and that's what makes it happen. And
we have 19 people. How many retro groups have 19 people from all over the world, from China, Peru, and yourself from UK? I don't know any.
That's how you represent the world. You get the world involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know any other group. I mean, like as I said, AJ, you said once like Vandalism wouldn't be having a podcast like us.
Exactly.
Or Vandalism wouldn't have their own Wikipedia entry.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are a demo scene.
Right. They're focused on a very, very narrow. They're focused on a topic. We are all over the God's green earth. We do everything. the podcast. I mean, we've talked to people that I never. Andrew, do you remember years ago? I sent a file to you and to Joerg about doing a podcast, and it was just kind of a. You do remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because Joerg doesn't remember that.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
I remember it.
Yeah, and it was pretty.
I thought then that was pretty forward thinking. That was pretty forward looking to suggest it, because that was when podcasting was really in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
People were trying to work out what it meant. I mean, we've seen in recent years, we've seen this explosion in content and this
definitely
huge change in how it's perceived.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you initially I was skeptical about it, but having seen how you've gone about it and how it's grown, it totally makes sense, because again, it connects so many of the topics we're interested in, many of the topics that people out there are interested in, because you can't have a podcast without having an audience. You need an audience. And it's clear there's an audience to Scene World because they're listening.
How did we get listed into Amazon/Audible podcasting directory?
Well, I think
because Amazon wrote to us.
Yeah,
like,
well, I think that
we are starting this secret podcast directory. Please don't tell anybody, but we want you to be listed at the start. And my first thought, like, is this phishing attack to fish my login data?
Well,
is this spam?
I think that the demo that I sent in originally is a lot different from what this ended up being.
Yeah.
And
I
think
remember,
I think that at the time it was kind of like, I don't know about it. Like the response, we were just sort of like, I don't know about this, but ultimately, it was just a test, and it was, way different from what this final thing was.
Yeah, because I remember you said, like, no, it will be just the two of us talking, and I said, no, I want two segments. I want a guest and a news section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see, you learn as you go along. You pick up the skills. You find the way.
Yeah. The original idea was just kind of like recapping the news in the magazine in a version that is audio, and then when I got the mic, I kind of just wanted to. The original idea that I put forward to Joerg was just kind of like, just us, bullshitting for an hour or so, and he's like, no, let's get guests, let's get all this really expanded into things. Like I was figuring let's try it out and start small, and then maybe we can expand. And he was already like, "No, we'll start out big and skip the start out small bit."
I was always the guy starting out big.
Immediately jump to Lars Subiri and stuff.
Yeah. So when do we start solving the true crimes?
Yeah, that's the next. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is how we start the Disc Mag,
Mm-hmm.
That's how we started the Disc Mag. We started issue 1, full force into NTSC Paul.
Yeah.
That is why it took from November 2020, from November year 2K till I think how long did it take? Well, it took 4 months, right? From November 20 from November 2000 to February 2001. 4 months from first concept to final issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was always the guy that would go big and maniac.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's which worked out because it's been a great run that we are still continuing. We're a couple. We're over 100 in, and the format has worked. And
right, and now we got the big intro feature.
And really it all stemmed from I got a microphone at a thrift store and said, hey, let's do a podcast because I want to play with the microphone. I don't know what else to do with it.
Well, it's been great fun being the guest tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like you to be a co-host a lot more often.
I'm gonna have to find some time to do that. And get in there, get some interesting interviews in there.
Yeah.
bring my perspective to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
thanks for
It's
sitting with us.
nighttime for me. It's almost bedtime for Andrew.
So best of luck with Gamescom. Hopefully I can be involved there somehow.
I hope you can as well.
And
yeah.
Right.
Whoa.
Getting dark
and it got
here.
dark. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep. I don't know what's happened there.
What happened?
Electricity went out?
No, electricity's not gone out. The lights. I haven't got the light on in here. But...
Don't.
It's got dark. I don't know what's happened. Anyway, I think it's the webcam. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah.
Because we've got nearly 2 hours, so.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So...
Well, yes, we'll put links to all the things for you down in the podcast description, so people can check that out and follow along at home.
Right.
And thank you for sitting with us, sir.
No problem. Take care,
guys. Thank you. Battery getting low.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.